All right, we're back here in the locker room, and I'm really getting into this.
I thought you were gonna fall.
This is Little Green Apples.
I know.
Now, when I was told about this song, I said, oh, I don't remember that song until I actually heard it. I'm like, oh my gosh!
Right. I didn't know the intro was this long. In a sense, yeah. I thought it was going.
But it's
here it's going
69.
on now.
That's not loving.
And that's what I was saying to Pete Thompson.
Right.
All right, I got a very special guest right now. We're a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. Let's go to the sports hotline and welcome into the locker room, Charlie Wallert. Charlie, welcome into the locker room.
Hey, Billy, how are you and how are all my friends in the South Jersey, Atlantic City area? My best to you.
Everybody's doing great, Charlie. And listen, I just told my producer, I said, Josh, man, you got to put on Little Green Apples for when Charlie comes on, because you were telling me the other day that all the songs that song beat out for the Grammy.
It beat out Hey Jude, the biggest charted hit for the Beatles. It beat out Wichita Lineman.
Glenn Campbell.
Yeah, it beat out Mrs. Robinson, who that song won the Academy Award that year, Simon and Garfunkel for The Graduate. So it was very special, and O.C. Smith was a very, very special person. God rest his soul. And no, Go-See is not resting. He's still out there somewhere singing because he was the best.
Charlie, I wanted to reach out to you and get you on the program because the Jersey Man magazine did a great piece on you. I recommend everybody go out and get a Jersey Man magazine and read the article, or you can go online at jerseymanmagazine.com. But Charlie, really, obviously, you cut your chops. The reason we're a sports show, but your story has so much to do with sports. If you could tell us a little bit about it, it's amazing. It's fascinating how you got your start.
Well, I'm a sports guy, and I do want to thank Ken Dunnick and Jersey Man and the wonderful writer Jordan who wrote that story. I mean, he got me. Anybody can list their accomplishments, 1, 2, 3, 4. But he got the feelings behind it, and just I was very happy with it because I felt that it did express the way I feel. And I always, since a child, has been into music, but I like sports. But I found out the best thing I could do at about 8 or 9 years old was throw a football. So I developed those skills while still doing music. And I was in a band in high school with Ronnie Lamar, who's down in your area right now, still to this day, my dear friend. And we did very well. We played at the World's Fair. We would make our weekend money. And I went to St. John's Prep, so we played on Sundays, so it usually wasn't a problem for Saturday gigs. until I became the starter, which I never dreamed of in my sophomore year when a couple of guys went down, and it was right in the middle of the first game. So I kind of pursued that career until I got hurt in college. And all through that, I was working with the New York Giants, and then I played at football camp with Hank Stram, and we became very close. And, it was a way to go, and I did have some skills with that. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and Charlie, you were also hold on, Charlie. You were also telling me that you could throw the ball really well, and Y.A. Tittle or somebody they were Hank Stram was really looking at you as a prototypical passer because passing wasn't big back then.
Well, yeah, Y.A. was my mentor. Y.A. was just wonderful. He taught me a lot of things about ball handling. I've never seen a green pass like him, which I don't think I've ever mastered. He was that. But yeah, what happened was during the camp, we would do 3 workouts, 2 team days, and then at night was the specialty. The kickers went with the kickers, and then the running backs would do drills, and then you'd have the wide receivers, flankers, and quarterbacks. And the first night, I was the youngest guy at camp. I think I was 15. And they had people from all over the country, and people were talking about the way I was passing and throwing and the distance and all that stuff. And then Stram and the rest of the coaches came the next night and were watching, because in those days they didn't have it like it was now. You'd have to keep your eye on young players wherever you would see them. And we developed a good relationship, Coach Stram and I learned more in a week with him than, oh my God, he was just an amazing football coach and had a great mind.
So Charlie, you actually, so you're working for the Giants in a football capacity on the chain gang, the ball boy, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And through that relationship, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're reading part of the article where Scooter, he was imitating Elvis Presley at the age of 7. You said in this piece that you could read music before you could even read. And then,
yeah, that's true.
But through sports and your connection with these sports figures, that set your musical career off.
Well, it's like I guess it's within you. You have a certain thing in you, and then your energy. Sometimes your subconscious. We all, the law of attraction is a law of reflection, even if it's deep inside. And then it led to some things later on where I got some validation that said, you know what, maybe you should really pursue a career in music.
We're talking with Charlie Wallert, legendary music producer and composer. And Charlie, I'm in here with Scotty McKay. We were going over some of the acts that you've associated yourself with. It's amazing, but you were in the right place at the right time. Talk to us a little bit about how you became friends with Joe Namath.
Well, originally, when after my relationship with Coach Stram, they would play the Jets at Shea Stadium every 2 years. And the first year I went, the Jets beat them. They beat them pretty good. Dick Wood was the quarterback. And I'll never forget Coach Stram went off on his players in the locker room. Biggest lineman in the league, can't pass block. Well, then a year after that, Joe's second year, I was a freshman at college at Central Connecticut State. Played on a freshman team. I was still injured, but came back for the holiday. And that was when the Chiefs were playing the Jets. And we were on the field, and Coach Stram said, hey, I know you probably want to say hi to Joe Namath. And I said, sure. And Coach Stram said, hey, we just exchanged pleasantries. And but Coach Stram came to me and said, Charlie, he said, I need your help. He said, now he was very familiar because he worked a week with me intensely, not only physically with the workouts, but the skull sessions as well, the plans, the reads and all that stuff. And in those days, what they would do, and they've done this for a long time, I guess, until computers and emails and stuff, they would have a photographer in the booth and take Polaroid pictures, and as the Polaroid pictures came out, they'd have somebody diagram the pass patterns. This way they could see what the defense was and, with the routes that were run. And I'll never forget, the photographer was a guy named Duke Neff, but Stram did not have anybody. I guess the guy was sick or didn't make the trip. He didn't have the guy to diagram the pass patterns. So he asked me to do it. And so the first time encounter, I was actually doing that for the Chiefs. Joe gave me a little flack about that for the first few years once we reconnected. But the Chiefs went on to play in the first Super Bowl that year.
That's awesome, Charlie. These are the stories that we want to hear about, the things, the relationships that you created. And I'm actually thinking there's hope for Billy in the music industry still because he hasn't learned to read. So we're thinking he's got a good shot still. But you were instrumental in Joe Namath's charitable funds, getting that together for him. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing.
They got it together. I support it tremendously. And, to go to joenamath.org. There's our celebrity golf tournament coming up in September in Long Island at the course that where they play the Masters on. I think it's called the Black Bear. But check out joenamath.org because it's a great charity. And the golf you'll meet like 50 Hall of Famers. It's a fantastic event. And anything Joe does, I want to support him because that's my friend, and he's a sincere guy, and I believe in what he does and what a friend's for. You support each other.
Hey, Charlie, though, here's what I want to talk about. So you, Pete, the NFL commissioner, Pete Rozelle, he wanted Joe. He didn't want Joe Namath to be a part of Bachelor's 3. And here you are, a 21-year-old kid from Brooklyn. Next thing you know, you're part owner of the Bachelor's 3. That had to be a wild ride.
Well, let me. First of all, nothing. The worst thing that they could say about Bachelor's 3 was that the place was a whole lot of fun, and that whole thing that was instigated was a bunch of bull. Years later, I became very close to Judge Bernie Jackson, who was the NFL investigator, one of them at that time. And he told me that there was this guy, I guess he was one of the security guys, that, he was probably jealous of Joe. And I think the whole NFL was jealous of Joe after they beat the Colts. It was just a shock.
Well, he had that look. Hey, Charlie, jealous of Joe. He wore pantyhose. He had fur jacket. He exuded cool.
Before that, a lot of that came after the Super Bowl, but they were in shock. And they tried to do whatever they could, and it really backfired. So, Joe quit. Joe quit football. Joe's a stand-up guy, and he wasn't going to do that. So they reached an agreement, and Joe was still one of the main things that Joe was still allowed to come into the club because that was home to him. And Ray Abruzzi spoke to me, and I was very fortunate, and it was great. I can't, it was probably the most fun I've ever had.
I'd say so. You see the documentaries about the Bachelors 3 and Joe Namath. And people don't realize that, how involved you were, and just such a great time to be alive and be a part of American culture.
Well, that's true, and that's why it's very important. We need to look back at that because there was a lot of transition times, and I really am pushing. I want to see a movie or miniseries or special like a HBO special or something like that about Joe because. Of course, we know his accomplishments and a great life, but think about the subject matter. Here's a kid from Pennsylvania, went through some things, goes to Alabama in the 60s, segregation, and then he pulls off the biggest upset in history, in sports history, and I do that by the point line, and he goes through some personal issues. And he's still around kicking today better than ever. So the greatest thing you can give is hope. And I think this story is great. Plus the fact that I remember as a young man, a teenager even, how this country healed going through those things. A lot of it had to do with sports and music. And I think right now we all need to embrace each other with our differences and all and come together in a peaceful way. So I think this is a story worth telling. And I told Joe, and I would tell anybody, the greatest thing I think you give to somebody is hope, and especially for our young people.
Well, I'll tell you what, Joe Namath has his book out all the way, My Life in Four Quarters. It's available at Barnes & Noble. You can go to joenamath.com. And, Charlie, I got to tell you, it's just
Namath, I think it's joenamath.org.
I'm sorry, joenamath.org. But you're such an inspiration to talk to, and one day I'd like to sit down with you, and I want to hear all the stories about the Bachelors 3.
Well, I'm not going to be able to tell all of them.
All right, so Charlie, what are you working on now?
Well, right now we're working on doing a book and screenplay, and basically we made them dance about my life and my experiences, and the reason why I really want to do that is, again, give hope and inspiration, but also it's a vehicle for music and some of the great artists I've worked with. To me, it's all about the music. And if that's a vehicle to celebrate the music I have done and lead to some things in the future, that's great. But I think it'll be a very inspiring story, some interesting names there. And again, it's all about don't give up. Just keep going.
Charlie, what do you think about the Kate Smith thing with the songs that were recorded back in the day and what they've kind of done to her name today? Do you think that's a travesty?
Well, I think that, you have to stand on the work that you did at the time and take into account what it was at the time. I just don't understand it. I think if we go back and look at the past, there are certain heroes of ours, of certain founding fathers, that certainly what they were participating in at the time or the way the country was or the world was wouldn't be acceptable today. So I don't really think you could go back in every sense and try to
erase that
for something at that time. It has nothing to do with, take that one song, God Bless America. Beautiful version, beautiful song. Let's stick with that.
I couldn't agree more. Charlie, listen, I wish we had more time, but it was wonderful to catch up with you. We'll stay in contact. I'll have this up on my YouTube. The interview will be up after the show today. Also, people, if you're interested, pick up a copy of the Jersey Man magazine. Read all about Charlie Wallert. It's a great story. And, Charlie, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Well, thank you, guys. And everybody out there, have a beautiful day, a safe weekend, and keep the music in your soul.